Hey everyone, welcome. Welcome to another. Josh Fletcher here, and I'm joined by Clint, Derek, and Greg. Hey guys.
Morning.
Hello.
Very late evening.
Yeah, evening for me too. So today we're going to be talking about the real-time data platform. So there was a lot of talk about it. I think we started talking about it 3 years back at TechEd. I remember doing a video with one of the Sybase guys and talking about how all this Sybase tech, and we thought it was to kind of revisit where that's at. Yeah, what are your guys' initial thoughts?
So should I just talk for the next hour, or how should we get this going?
We can take that.
Well, yeah, let me get my coffee, and then I'll put you on auto Clint, and then I'm gone.
Yeah, let me start. Let's see. I've been quite opinionated about this topic, and I actually read a blog post I wrote probably 3 years ago about how real-time is SAP's real-time data platform, which we'll put in the show notes. At the time, I was having a bit of a go because I thought it was a bit of a Hannah show. This is me looking into crystal balls many years ago, and then it's turned out it's been the Hannah show. I think that's what's transpired. But from my perspective, from a positive point of view, I think SAP are definitely getting there in terms of the integration that's starting to happen. I think it's taken a bit of time for them to realize that people aren't going to run everything in memory, and yes, that may be something in the distant future, but right now that's just a very expensive option, and there are alternatives. So I think that was part of the learning curve for them, bearing in mind that SAP have never really sold database before, and that's a new game for them. Suddenly the TCO thing comes into debate, and all the other database sort of key factors when deciding. So it has been the Hannah show, but and we'll talk about the specifics now, what's happening. But it's with SPS 9, there were some great releases. It's obviously still not the nirvana I was hoping for, but we're definitely getting there, which is a good thing.
I remember when I did that interview back at TechEd in 20. There was all this Sybase tech coming into the fold, and Hannah was still very new, and a long-time data services user, and I had quite a few concerns around how they were going to mash all this stuff together. But recently I've been involved in quite a lot of discussions around looking at this technology for the company I work for, and I was actually really taken aback by how far it's progressed in terms of integration and just how much stuff is now being embedded into data services. It's still definitely a work in progress, like you said, Clint. The embedding of rep server and data services and that into the HANA stack, it's really a lot more viable as a complete platform for doing all your enterprise information management. So.
And that's, from a data guy's perspective, the sad part is that part of the platform no one really talks about, and I think that hasn't changed. I can't remember. I don't want to get an SAP exec into trouble, but I remember sitting in one presentation where he said that the biggest failing of SAP was selling it as a fast database and not as a platform. I have opinions why they did that, but to me there is so much more as part of the platform and the real-time data platform with now the dynamic tiering, which was extended storage, which is basically Sybase IQ done in a blog post and in a podcast. The integration, the smart data streaming, all the products that they have now renamed, but it's all part of text analysis from data services. It's all part of the platform now, and not many people know about that. I was just did a talk recently here in Canberra, and did you people know the platform can do this? And it's just blank stares. What we three and a bit years in, so that messaging still needs to get out there.
Yeah, it takes time too. I know, with anything new, the enterprise customers are always much slower to adopt things than us nerdy guys are want to develop them. But I think the message that it's the robust of the platform is really starting to get out this year, but only this year, because I think it's finally reached that level of maturity, like you're talking about, and just even the shift in the industry too, with so much focus around big data and data science and analytics and stuff this year, that Yeah, it's a fast database, but you can't just shove everything into HANA, right? You need to have all this other stuff, and it's just a part of the platform. But it's getting out there.
Right. I think, and then to echo what you're saying, Greg, it's working for a big enterprise is exactly what's going on. It's the fact that everyone's, big enterprise is always behind the times in some respects. So what boils down to is that people are saying that, all right, we're not going to be able to shove everything into the magic box, so we need to shove everything into the giant lake or stream or whatever we're going to call it this week, and then from there take out and put into the magic box so people can do stuff with it. So that's been a couple of years coming. Those people who have been either, you can call them, innovators, or those who are those who kind of saw that light at the end of the tunnel and didn't see it as a train, are positioning themselves in their companies for the use of things like HANA as a platform rather than just a fast database, because they saw that light wasn't the oncoming train. It was actually the light at the end of the tunnel.
And that's still, in my opinion, very few and far between. The people who are going to get okay, let's take the BW and HANA customers out of this, because generally due to licensing restrictions you can't run much, besides use it as a fast database. The people that do use it as a platform are the ones that do have that vision. And I know there are a lot of moving parts, and there's still pieces of that puzzle that need to get there. But point I've been saying for 3 years that if you look at from a data warehousing or enterprise data warehouse space, if SAP have got the combination of column in memory and can get this dynamic tiering where they move data between hot and cold store, no one's going to touch. In my opinion, no one's going to touch them. It's super powerful messaging, and they hopefully with N9 with dynamic tiering getting released, it was probably a year late from when it first came to extended storage. It's as a data nerd, it's pretty exciting.
That's a great term.
The other. Sorry.
Go ahead, Josh.
The other aspect of the piece, which is quite interesting to me, is we've been doing a lot of work with replication. So replicating source systems in real time between database technologies, and that the fact that they've actually folded a cut down version of Rep Server, which is the Sybase now SAP equivalent replication, and also they've taken the core data services capability and they've basically embedded that in HANA, and then it actually, they work together in terms of you either tell it I want to do batch or I want to do real time, and it uses either technology to actually provision that data into HANA. And so that's still, there's still a way to go. The data services capability is still, but that's such a great step forward in terms of from a usability and a learning one technology, which is HANA. I don't have to learn Rep Server and data services and HANA. I just learned HANA, and HANA does the data provisioning for me. I think it's a really good step forward in terms of just sourcing or provisioning your data into HANA itself.
For sure.
I don't know if you guys have looked at that. Yeah.
I have. I actually, in one of the presentations, I put a slide up which is about the current enterprise. So you've got all your source systems, and you put imagination, boys. You've got your source systems, and then you've got your ETL tier, which has got, it's got a web server, it's got a database as a repository, it's got a file server, it's got an application server, it's all of that. And then if you've got data quality, you replicate that. And then you've got databases which go up to star schemas and cube up to various sources, and then you've got our dear beloved friend business objects, which has got multi-app servers, multi-web nodes, load balancers. It's a super and that's enterprise. That's what we do, right? But the vision of the black box is that all runs off one platform, and that is super powerful. And yes, this comes to the I guess how we conditioned as sort of technologists is. That's quite scary to think that everything can run off one platform. Like, what happens if that platform goes? That's the whole mindset shift that you got to start getting your head around. But the technology's there. And another one. Sorry, I don't want to harp on presentations I do, but it's the same thing where I'm pulling data online. You getting sort of you're getting JSON data from the internet. You pulling it in. You're doing data quality. You're doing text analysis, and you're doing a sort of a sort of a UI5 app on the box. That's a whole enterprise happening on one box, and that's super exciting. But once again, I don't think a lot of people are using it like that yet.
Well, I think the yet is the important part of that discussion there, Clint. It's the yet is still yet for a lot of people and a lot of companies and a lot of individuals, and it doesn't help that the yet encompasses a tremendous amount of tools, technologies, and platforms, for lack of a better term. You mean you've got everything from companies who want to keep everything open source and truly open source, and people who are doing open source paid version flavors, to folks who are doing vendor specific. So it's those types of presentations, especially in our ecosystem, that matter, because there's a lot of, I don't want to say bad architecture, but there's a lot of rabbit holes you can go down that when you get to the bottom of the hole, you have no good way up. So if you go down the wrong hole, rabbit hole, let's say, let's keep it clean. If you go down the wrong rabbit hole, you might end up in the fox's den. And say goodbye to your money and say goodbye to all that time and all the resources wasted. So the more information that's out there, and the more customers and people are doing the work, they're able to see, well, that's going to work for me, or there's no way I'm going to be able to use that product, because right now it's a true free market, random cowboy economy sometimes, especially in the big data space.
Let's define big data for the next 2 hours.
How do you think SAP marketing this capability? Do you think there's still a big focus on marketing to the ERP and the BW customers, and not actually the kind of, here's a data platform which will make which will do your operational data warehousing, selling to non-SAP customers?
Until you sent the invite out for the podcast, I haven't heard about the Real-Time Data Platform for quite a while. And I love, we all do a lot of conferences, and I don't think I've seen that slide, with HANA, and then there's ESP and IQ and Hadoop and ASC and something else on the side. I haven't seen that real-time data platform slide in a long time, and I haven't heard that messaging of the real-time data. I don't know what everybody else is, or am I sleeping through the keynotes? I don't know.
You're not sleeping through the keynotes, because that's generally my job. And I can tell you didn't miss that part. So you're good. Just
am I good?
I'm sure you're not drinking coffee like I am now, but
see, because I'm getting old. This is a South African tea. It's called Rooibos. It's caffeine free, so I can actually get my beauty sleep after this. Needed.
Yeah, I don't pay a terrible lot of attention to SAP marketing anymore, so I'm sorry. I can't tell you whether the message is there or not. But
bad but true.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, and obviously every time I go to the conferences to find out about the data stuff, that's pretty much where, and I haven't heard it. So it'll actually be very interesting, and I know most of us are in Orlando soon, or 3 of us, or 2 of us, to actually find out what happened to the whole real-time data platform offering. Is it? I'm not perceiving from SAP, but if you look at IQ's now dynamic tiering, ESP is now, which is Sybase, event stream processing is now smart data streaming. ASE, I think, still around. Maybe it's just becoming HANA products and not, seeing it as HANA components, not seeing it as these standalone Sybase stuff that kind of fits in around the box. Maybe that's their strategy.
I think from what I've seen is that they're still offering all those components as standalone products. You can still go and buy ASC, or you can buy IQ, or you can buy ESP. But then they're starting to roll them into HANA as well. Obviously, they integrate with HANA. So if you buy HANA and you buy RepServer, then you can get RepServer to write into HANA. But you can also buy the HANA with the smart data integration, which has the kind of kernel of RepServer built in and does all the deployment for you without having to stand up a separate RepServer, right? But what I've seen is the licensing model is still a bit difficult, right? Like you buy HANA Core, then you add on all these smart data access, smart data streaming, smart data integration, and that gets a little bit clunky. So maybe that's also a bit of a blocker for customers in terms of adoption. Is just I got to buy all this add-on stuff,
And that to me is where, most as much as I'm not a BW person, a lot of the people we deal with, besides a few customers, are BW and HANA customers, and that licensing is pretty restrictive. I know there's a new licensing, I think it's called LREAB or something along those lines, where it does open things up a bit more in terms of the stack, and people can use different parts of it. But generally, you can do the platform presentation and it's all ooh and glossy, but it costs considerable amount more than the runtime edition, and that's been a huge hindrance in my take. I mean, another thing, and this is thinking out loud, that's an Ed Sheeran song, but anyway, too soon? No. Do you guys know have you heard of Ed Sheeran in the States?
Yes, I have a 14-year-old daughter, so of course I've heard of Ed Sheeran.
Oh, okay, cool. Just he's touring Australia at the moment, but thinking out loud. But I mean, it just I think maybe another hindrance from an SAP perspective, and this is a rant, I guess, if anybody does listen, is all these parts of all these add-ons are great, but it's impossible to get your hands on. So you can't get hold of dynamic tiering install, you can't get hold of smart data streaming, you can't get hold of data integration. So SAP have done an amazing job with HANA Academy, not going to knock them. Amazon in the cloud instance, amazing. That's all brilliant stuff. But if you can't get hold of the technology that's actually going to help you extend the platform and actually make it a sustainable solution, then no one's actually going to play with it. We gold partners and we can't get hold of the installs. So we can't talk about it, and we can't talk to our customers about it. That's a problem. Rant over.
Rant done.
Thoughts?
Not particularly on the. Well, I guess I could say I agree with you with the availability of tools. It's that's why you end up having to always bring in other tools at the competition, because people can get their hands on things outside of having to deal with the account exec or having to deal with your partner coordinator or whatever you guys have to do on your end. Whenever I get an RFP for a project or a tool, somebody saying, we want to compare, this to this. We've already downloaded this, and you're like, you shake your head, and it's the same type of, I don't want to say it's an issue, but it's the same type of thing going forward. In that, once you have things more freely available based on your licensing or whatever, you're right. People are going to be able to implement or try them at least. If you have to go through 17,000 hoops, as this type of stuff starts to take off and become more mainstream, people are just going to say, well, forget you, I'm going to go here because I'm able to get the download and try it and see if it's going to meet my need. As opposed to having to fill out a form, call have an AE call or some cold sales call or something else. So there's got to be a pivot somewhere at some point to take it to that next level.
So I think they're trying, though, too, because I don't know, how many of you heard about the HANA Live stuff that they're starting to publish? Anybody?
Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah.
Josh is nodding his head. So HANA Live is basically like RapidMart's used to be. So it's stuff they already built, so calculation views and whatnot. That it's free, so they're giving it away. It's kind of out there, and it's different industry terms, but they're trying to get stuff out there to make this more easy to adopt in these different industries. So
I think you're right, Greg, and to Derek's point as well. I think they've made some good strides in the last few years with making technology about. I mean, you look at Lumira. Anyone can download that. You'll now predictive analytics. Right? There's a trial going to be available for that. You can download that, and I've downloaded them in Infinite Insight. And but some of the back-end technologies where we still struggle, like replication server is a good example, where we wanted to look at that, wanted to download a trial, can't find it anywhere. Even though it will, if you get your hands on the software, it installs with a 30-day license key, like it installs with the trials. But the trial will anywhere. Oracle, I don't know if that's still the case right now, but I remember looking at it a couple of years ago where you can go to Oracle's website and anyone can download any piece of Oracle's software. And so as a comparison, that's another very large, making all of their software available, and you just don't see the same with SAP, and that does make it hard for you to really quickly try new software and compare it against other technologies from other vendors.
So here's a question to Josh and Derek from a customer perspective. romantic notion here. Where's the tipping point of, let's just look at data integrator. Where's the tipping point, do you think, from a customer perspective, where you go off from having traditional ETL, whatever your tech is, into a data warehouse which creates data marts, and saying, well, you know what, if we take all this infrastructure and all the cost of maintaining that, we can run this off a single platform. Where do you think the tipping point is? Do you think it's one of those one small project that's a knock out of the park that actually makes people realign, or what do you think C-level execs are thinking when they're looking at that? Or do they just go, oh, geez, this is expensive, but not taking into account all the tiers that they sort of going to hopefully cull?
I'll go first. It's all of the above, because
Let you
that's
go first, Derek.
Yep. Oh, am I on mute? Nope. Okay. It's all of the above, plain and simple. A lot of successes comes from small projects, but at the end of the day, unless the C-level suites see the impact of that, it never gets beyond that single project. So it's a combination of the two. It's also the fact, of depending on your company, does your preferred, quote unquote, preferred vendors have the solution for that platform? Because a lot of companies, mine included, have preferred vendors for things. So you have to go through that route first to prove that the preferred vendor solution doesn't meet that need. And then once you can either prove that, disprove that, or prove that, then you can move into other things that make the platform. And then that platform could be HANA or something else. But the moral of that story is that it's all going to depend on the win, to be honest with you, Clint. You can have a small win for a small project that saves a couple $100,000 and no one's going to notice. But if your small win saves a couple $100 million, it's a whole different ballgame. But I don't think, for us, at least for me right now, the tipping point isn't necessarily is on the data integrator side. Sorry, I'm a little under the weather, as you guys can tell, so cold medicine feels lovely. We're finding that more and more folks need to do their own desktop ETL. No longer are folks content in just getting a little bit of data. They have to mix and mash it. They have to combine it together. They have to do their own things, and then they have to land it somewhere.
Isn't that's what Desky's for?
Zombie Desky.
It was sorry.
Unfortunately, we're not a Desky shop anyway, so I didn't have to worry about it. But more and more people are coming to my shop saying, you know what, I've got data here and I got data here. I need to put them all together, and then I want it to be fast. So I think that those folks who can solve that business problem and land it on their platform have a good chance of having their platform then becoming a de facto standard and becoming more wide-ranging, and then having the lake or river or stream of data feeding into that platform on the underside. So coming at it through the user end seems to be something a little more has a chance for a higher level of success than trying to do a full-blown enterprise, transformation.
So something we've experienced which is quite interesting, is because of the whole procurement issue and going through all the hoops that you have to go through to say land a HANA appliance in there. A couple of customers have been quite interested in us running or hosting cloud instances for them for those small business quick wins, which has been quite interesting, but obviously quite compelling, because instead of going through that 6 to 12 month process of actually trying to get something there, within a couple of weeks they have their business unit running in the cloud. Which is something I didn't personally think would happen as quickly as it has, but it's been quite an interesting take on getting a platform running pretty quickly.
Well, I think it's a great idea, to be honest with you, as long as you don't, there's, in cases of corporations like mine, you've got federal rules and whatnot that makes cloud a little different. But for other SMEs especially, why invest in the infrastructure when for something that you're just describing? It's a perfect example for something hosted in the cloud. Absolutely. The fact that I don't see more folks doing that and they're spinning up servers blows my mind, because it's it's secure, it's robust, and you're not paying someone 24/7 to babysit it, in-house. I think that as business teams shift to that, so as long as they meet, match and don't violate their corporate standards in doing it, I think that is definitely going to be something that can cause that shift in the platform. Because as more business units are on a HANA in the cloud, hosted somewhere, and business unit A is hosted and business unit B, everyone can then see the economy of scale of getting one giant HANA cloud.
It's buzzword bingo. HANA cloud in memory. Come on, man. It's amazing.
So, drink.
It's like Sapphire keynote.
I was going to touch on our
unfortunately, I'm on cold medicine. Remember, I'm high on cold medicine.
Yeah, but the rule is to share.
I'm not on stage.
The DSLayer code of conduct is to share the cold medicine, always.
I was going to say that our perspective on it is actually it's quite interesting, because we're at a bit of a junction at the moment, and we're looking at we've got a traditional ETL into data warehouse that's got 3 layers, and we get everything up, and on average our latency for our fact tables is 15 minutes, right? Which is pretty good. We're 15 minutes behind what's happening in our source systems, but it's not fast enough, and it takes us so much time and costs so much money to just build out new subject areas into our warehouse. And so we're really looking at what the promise of the HANA and the real-time data platform is giving, which is really turning that on its head and looking at virtualizing a lot of what we have to do today physically. And that promise is enough for us to actually look at it and run pilots and figure out if that's actually going to give us what we want. But we have to test it out. We have to put it to the test and actually prove that it can do what they promise it can do before we'll actually go down that path. But I think there's enough potential value there that we're definitely platform shift for us.
It has to change though, right? I mean, you think about it. The COD's laws of data normalization were written in the 1970s, and we weren't thinking about petabytes of data when that stuff was invented. I mean, it was just like, bah! So the model just doesn't work. That model is gonna. I mean, yeah, we massage it along and we're comfortable with it, especially enterprise is what we've been using for so long. But as you're seeing, it's just not fast enough. It can't scale big enough and be fast enough to work anymore. So it's going to have to change, and I don't think you're alone being on that tipping point.
Yeah, and that's the paradigm shift that's got to happen, because people, like the relational model of having foreign keys, everyone's like, that's how you design a data model. Like, why did you design a data model like that? Well, because databases were crappy slow, and it's the only way they could possibly read. Suddenly, you look at the columnar, and you don't need that because of the bitwise indexing that happens for you. So why are you doing that? And generally, when I've always posed that question for 20 years, people are like, oh, no, because you have to. But why do you have to? It's that paradigm shift of saying, well, this is how we model because. Well, that's because, IBM did it in the 70s. And we're not in the 70s anymore. So,
do you remember being at a conference, Clint, and I made that statement in the middle of a presentation, and you corrected me in front of everyone? Remember that?
Did I do that to you? Yeah. I'm sorry, Ray.
I learned my lesson. I'm sorry. I'll never talk about foreign keys in HANA again.
I apologize. Hopefully it was a small, intimate crowd, and I didn't embarrass you too much.
It was. No.
Okay. Sorry, mate, man.
I still think about it every day. No.
It was a keynote.
You can rip me a new one or something else. I'm sure. I know you're a lot smarter than me, so it's just a matter of time.
I mean, one of the things that I thought I'd
I'm actually blushing.
Bring that up. Yeah. But this virtual data model thing to me is actually really interesting. Are you guys aware of any customers that have really done that? They've actually flipped their entire warehouse to a virtual model?
Yes.
Is the proof there? We've got the use cases there.
Yes. And I know a lot of customers on the for the BW people, bear me if I butcher this, but are just bringing across DSOs from BW and HANA and modeling everything on top. So obviously to stay within licensing requirements come in through the BW app layer, just bring the DSOs across into memory, and then model everything in HANA, but it's all virtual models. So yes, absolutely.
And what about non-BW shops?
I've only dealt with 2 or 3. As I said, most of them are BW and HANA shops, and that's the only way to model it. But see, this is another problem, and this is another paradigm shift. And I'm going to get on a soap. I'm on a soapbox here in case you can't see. But it's people not understanding the concepts of data modeling and how to conceptually do things. I mean, I've seen so many BW consultants go into a BW and HANA instance and create physical info cubes and physically model databases, because that's what they're trying to replicate what they have, because they don't fundamentally understand the logic of what the platform's trying to do. So a lot of instances I've walked in there and I've seen star schemas physically created on the platform, and like, well, why would you possibly do that? That yet to comes with education, because from an enterprise data warehouse world, doesn't fit into the SAP space, right? From a BW perspective, all the modeling is done for you. You go right-click, create slowly changing dimension, done. You don't actually understand. Don't want to offend anybody, but you don't have to do the modeling through, like Josh, we would have done through data services jobs or whatever ETL tool you use. And I think that's the big education part of people trying to, well, let's just dump as is, rip and replace in memory. Oh, geez, we've run out of space. It's not performing how we want to. Let's rethink this. And that's that whole opportunity to refactor how you've done things.
I think that's something that's missing, though, in the ecosystem, right? Like, yeah, mind blown. But, so if I look at it from a BW perspective, sure, like slowly changing dimensions. But if I want to do that outside of BW, does HANA have the capability to do that? Because that was something that I couldn't get a straight answer for. But then that's maybe something you can answer for me. But then secondly is that I approach it, if I'm going through that paradigm shift, and today I build a fact table with a ton of foreign keys and I link to my dimensions, and I join on date if they're type 2 dimensions, etc. How do I physically model that, or virtually model that, and what parts do I still need to instantiate? And which parts do I need? Which parts can I let the analytic models and the calculation views, manage virtually? Because I think that's still quite unclear. There's not a kind of dummy's guide to data warehouses in HANA kind of thing that we have available to us.
Yeah, I agree. It's a huge missing part, and you almost need Ralph Kimball to write a book for in memory. In terms Didn't
he retire? I heard.
I think the Kimball Institute is gone now. I think he has retired. I know he wrote one on Hadoop, which I still need to get to. And a shout out to Timo if he listens, because he told me about that. But believe Kimball did do a data warehouse guide for Hadoop, which is very good, but I haven't seen it. But yeah, I agree that education is absolutely missing. But once again, you've got to look at what percentage of customers are running the platform enterprise data warehouse. 1 or 2%, BW and HANA, now S4, which is Simple Finance, which is Suite and HANA. I think it's all the same thing. That's from an SAP marketing, that's where the energy is, because that's where the customer base is now. Once again, my opinion. Doesn't help us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think there's demand there, definitely. You talk to people, and I think HANA was originally, before they actually got ERP and BW running on HANA, it was being sold as, here is a really fast, really fast database, but it'll really accelerate your data warehouse, right? Like you can virtually model stuff when it was still quite an immature technology, but that's the original selling, or the market that they were selling to was operational data warehouses, right?
And we haven't even got into text analysis, which is ninja. That's another thing as part of the platform. That's amazing. They've done such a. If you've seen how they've extended, I'm assuming they've extended that from data services or data integrator. But the text analysis engine is it's gone. I don't know when last you looked at it, but from when it came in 7 to where it is in 9, it's amazing. They're really, really doing good things there. But once again, people don't know about it.
there was a whole piece also around the data quality transformations they built into the AFL, but that really didn't get a lot of noise when it got released. I don't know if they've expanded on that in 9 as well.
I haven't checked it out in 9, but I've got another blog post which says, well, in-memory databases bring data quality to the fore, which is a riveting read for data nerds. But once, data quality is not sexy, man. It's not going to be in a keynote at Sapphire.
By riveting read, you mean putting me to bed, or it's
when you
gonna
can't
come
understand,
something
doesn't tip you over the edge. Read data quality manuals.
Is that a refill there? And he's gone. Can I change tack slightly, guys?
Sure.
Go for it.
Why not?
Why not? So part of what I love about the messaging in terms of the platform, and I know this fits in the real-time data platform, this moves a bit, is obviously Lumira server sitting on top of HANA. Because from a data latency, if you look at what we've got, let's use business objects again. We've got a data warehouse, we rely on an ODBC driver, we've got boxes that are on our network, we've got to move data, we've got to aggregate data, we rely on app servers, web servers, we've got all this stuff. And when you go into the terabytes of data, that just creates latency. It just is what it is. And Mr. GP Myers would be the ninja of sorting out that latency, but it's there, and it's just the nature of the beast. The Lumira server on HANA message was amazing to me, slightly past tense, because it put the Lumira engine sitting on top of your data. So it was, you literally have all energy or all the in-memory power on it. But what's been a bit disconcerting over the last couple of months is how that is running, say, 6 to 9 months, six months behind the platform release, which means customers can't come up to the latest version. So, for example, Lumira server on HANA is still not supported on 9, and it's been out for 4 or 5 months. And also the lack of bringing that into the BI platform is it's been a bit disappointing, because that was the whole vision of saying, we're going to have this running in memory for your super fast Ninja stuff, but then we're going to bring it back to the platform, which is going to give us the whole enterprise feel. I don't know what everybody's thoughts are on that, and if everybody shares my disappointment in the way that's gone.
Well, I think it's inevitable that they're going to be behind because, just the reality is that they're different development teams, right? So the Lumira server guys get a build of HANA, and that's what they have to work until they release their code, and it's always going to be behind. And we kind of deal with this anyway, so they're always behind in Java versions that are supported, browser versions that are supported, operating systems. It's just sort of the nature of how this enterprise software thing goes along. And we always all want the big new shiny. I think the other piece of that wasn't extremely clear, actually wasn't very clear to me until this last week, is that version of Lumira server that's on HANA will not ever connect to your BI platform. That's just not a route that they're going to go down. There's a newer version that's coming out that will go on the platform, but never the two shall connect. You can still put your Lumira stuff into the BI platform with this, that once they release that Velocity Engine server piece that's in customer validation at the moment. But it was proving too cumbersome to the HANA piece and the Lumira server piece and the BI platform piece. It was just too much, and it was too big, and customers didn't want it. Most customers didn't want it because it was too much of an investment. They want the Lumira, but they want to put it with their platform that they already have. They didn't want to invest another big chunk of money for HANA and Lumira server off to the side too that may or may not connect, and then it ties them all together. So talk about patching nightmare, right? It's bad enough as it is. So that's what I've walked away the last week or so with, so much clearer messaging, at least from SAP around that.
Devil's advocate here. If you're selling a platform and that's what you want customers to buy into, and I understand development teams are split. So let's say you're a customer running BW on HANA, you've got Design Studio on there, you've got a bit of Lumira, you've got dynamic tiering, you've got smart data streaming. What else can we throw in there? So you've got all these pieces running, and you're a good SAP customer. Let's assume every single one of those development teams are in different places, somewhere around the world, which of course they've got to be. But when you release a version of a platform, because that's what you're selling, surely it's your responsibility to get your ducks in a row and not end yourself in a horribly staggered state where your customers, well, I can do BW, but I can't do this, but I can't do Design Studio, but then I've got to, what about my, and end up in this horrible PAM scenario where you've got about 12 of them open to figure out if you can upgrade your platform, because that's what you're buying into. And even in these, and this is just, to me, if I was SAP and they do listen, it's just a warning sign. If customers invest in that message, when we go, I'd rather wait 3 months or have 9 months release cycles, but then let everything go together. And that's they're probably laughing at me because I've never developed software. But if you're a customer and you want your customers to love what you're offering as a platform, surely that's a better strategy.
I'm just not sure how that could ever be possible. And yeah, it's certainly the dream, but I mean, just having been in development organizations, I'm not presently, but I have in the past, and there's just always got to be some lag. And even from the systems side, where I live and breathe now, you don't ever take the latest patch of anything until all of your applications are certified on it. It's just the nature of where we live, especially in enterprise. Just because Microsoft pushes updates doesn't mean we take them. Just because Oracle wants to give us the latest Java update, we shut those off. It just has to be a metered approach. And yes, I think those cycles need to shorten, definitely, so that we are more quickly adopting the latest greatest to get that stuff out there. But it's just the harsh reality of systems and enterprise.
Because that's been the tricky thing for the customers I've dealt with 9. It's like, oh, here's all this cool data stuff, but because we're running this, we can't have it. Here's the shiny carrot you can't have.
Sure.
and that affects.
What do you think that?
People... Go, Josh.
I was going to say, what does that mean though for the future of the BI platform, right? I mean, I know we've kind of bandied around this a few times, but if you've got Lumira Server and you are moving to the HANA Real-Time Data Platform, what does that mean for business objects? I think we're going to see all the client tools migrate to HANA, but when do we get to that point where it is an integrated platform? We're not deploying a BI platform off to the side, and we're deploying a HANA platform, and the two kind of don't sync up.
I don't think there's a magic bullet. So the BI platform isn't going anywhere for a while. It is the mature enterprise reporting platform. If you can't go parity feature one for one with Lumira Server and business objects, you just can't, because it doesn't come anywhere close yet. And until it gets even remotely close, there's going to be a role for both. But I think, like the customer you just described, they're net new, they're going in HANA, that's their route, then maybe there's not a case for business objects there. But there's also a lot of customers around the world that are heavily invested in the BI platform, and that piece is going to continue to exist for the foreseeable future. And it's probably pretty mature, but I think there's still new stuff coming. They're still going to obviously keep supporting it for a long time. I think that's part of why they're killing off 4.0 and XI 3.1 this year, so they can consolidate all their effort on 4.1 and just keep, that focus of keeping this, up to date. But, they're very separate use cases at the moment. You're not going to do like enterprise report bursting with Lumira. You're just not.
To me, the news. The very sad news in my case that the Lumira server on HANA wasn't going to integrate with the platform was quite compelling, because with that piece gone, that comes to that whole, the whole nirvana of everything running in memory, and then you've just got your enterprise platform on the side. But the fact that those aren't integrating, to me means the platform will be around for a hell of a lot longer than I thought. Because Lumira is going to be integrated, but that's going to be standalone from your HANA, that whole Nirvana platform. So my perception, especially with that news, is that 4.2 and 4.3 or whatever, I don't know what they've got planned, but I think it's going to be around for a lot longer than when the whole HANA wave was hovering pretty hard, and I think it's going to be around a lot longer than most of us expected.
I guess it's like the story you hear around BW, right? Like, there's two ways to do your data warehouse. There's user data warehouse engine that does all the governance and does all the modeling, and the pre-built UI, which is the BW kind of yourself from the ground up. And it's the same with the BI platform, right? It's one thing to go, we've got this great visualization engine running off HANA, but what's all our enterprise BI capabilities, and can they be ported over? Like all the scheduling capability and the security capability and the portal capability and all that stuff, that's not easily ported over. And so there's still a place for that, right? And it's how do they kind of converge the two, knowing that HANA is the kind of end state.
Derek, you've been quiet.
Did I just say something really stupid?
No.
Okay. Not at all. No, you're not saying it all, because we're having the same discussions when it comes to Lumira Server and the BI platform. So it's every customer, or not even customer, every user of the platform has got some decisions to make regarding where they're going with the different back-end platforms. And I think this year, 2015, is going to be a pivotal year for SAP to show the customers what that roadmap is and where you're going to have to invest. Especially with the integration to the platform, those, like Greg, like you said, people have got a lot of money tied into that back-end platform. You've got to make sure that the new stuff plays well with it, or else you're going to feel like you wasted your money. Not everything can be done in a Lumira type visualization data discovery tool. So you need to have the other tools, but if they're not going to play well together, then why would you necessarily look at Lumira then? If they're not going to play well, I could look at somebody else, because if the stuff I build in one isn't going to play with the other, then I'm not necessarily then relegated to just playing in SAP's shop. So that's why I really think this year is going to be, especially with the whole HANA as a platform, and data lakes and all that. I just love that term. That's my term of the week. The data lake. I just want to go swimming. With that whole HANA as a platform, you can't all that. I think it's going to be a key year to see where that messaging and where the announcements are going and what the roadmap is, because people are going to have some decisions to make, and it's going to be kind of fun to watch and be on the sidelines, analyzing and coding and drinking.
Yeah, because
point, Derek. I was just going to say, Clint, that circling back form, it's really interesting for me in that I'm not aware of any other vendors who have this strategy. And I think that's you can kind of take that two ways, right? I don't know. Maybe Clint, you're really close to this. Are there any other vendors who you see kind of with this similar strategy?
No, not that. I mean, I was, if I was in sales or pre-sales of software, probably a better person to speak to. But I have been banging this drum for a long time, that if SAP get it right and sell it right and actually give their customers a good blend of the 10% in memory and the rest doesn't really need to be there because it's too expensive, but then still leverage a platform, untouchable, in my opinion. But just to Derek's point in terms of the Lumira talking to the platform and other alternatives, the T word. Let's just throw Tableau out there. A classic example which we ran into is when you connect the latest version of Lumira to a HANA view that you've defined the latitude and longitude and you've created as a geographical hierarchy. It can't do mapping. which is just fundamentally not right at the moment. Because those are your shiny toys that you want to show off. You can connect it.
The mapping if you have an Esri license.
I'm too cheap to buy one, but you can connect it. You can connect a competitor's tool, and within 5 minutes, you've got geographic mapping. And these are the showcase tools that are up there. And as people in the SAP space, it doesn't make your job easy when you're telling your customers, "Well, you got to use this stuff," and they say, "Well, we can do this and this stuff," and it takes me 5 minutes. It's like, but that's coming back to the point about the platform and all the different development teams. I mean, I'd hate to manage that, and I know I'm simplifying it, but those little things make a huge difference.
Well, they make all the difference in the world, to be honest with you, because it's not just external, consultants. It's internally on my, thousands of employees in my company, trying to manage the expectations, what the tools can and can't do, what the tools are going to be able to do, and what the timeline is for things that actually happen, So it's like I said, this is a pivotal year for the entire platform as a whole to see where it's going. Like I said, it's going to be fun to watch, to see how the positioning comes out, what the response to positioning is going to come out. Especially with S4 now, you've got companies, you have a whole other platform that folks have to talk about on the ERP side. So, like I said, it's going to, buckle up and ride the hype train.
So on the topic of S4, and I don't know how long we've been going here, but what are you guys expecting to see at Sapphire? Do you think it's just going to be an S4 show, or any?
I think it's going to be a real-time data platform show, from the sounds of it.
Yeah. If and Khan, if you're listening, we need some keynote time on the real-time data platform.
Exactly.
I think it's going to be all S4 all the time.
My liver can't take that. If we're going to drink every time someone mentions S4, I'm going to be dead. My wife will kill us. But that's normal though. That's for better or for worse. That's SAP's mantra. It seems we're going to talk about the new and shiny, and we're going to take the new and shiny, and we're going to beat you over the head with it. And then go to the session room and talk about what you're actually using. And that totally, I'm so used to that now. I'm like, okay, this is cool. I go to listen to the future talk. No offense to Hasso, not so much there. And then, go to the session to figure out who's doing what with what now. That's going to make my life easier. While we look at try to look at the future talk and figure out what parts of the future talk are going to really make it, or are really going to be implementable for my particular installation. But you have to do that with all the vendors. Sometimes it just seems that when we get to annual conference, it's more apparent.
Yeah, but the analytics, the one little yellow analytics thing, which has got Lumira and everything in it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at least we have 41 sessions on the annual conference side of BI, and it's not all HANA, so that's good. So you can avoid the booth and come to the ASUG side of the house, and you'll get some good stuff. But it's everything else is going to be how complex can we make simple that I want to go drinking.
I saw a great tweet. I can't remember who put it up, but someone put in a slide up around or S4. And they had to explain it, and they said, "Well, if it's simple finance, why do you actually have to explain what's going on in the slide set? Surely something's wrong. Surely something's wrong. I can't remember the context. Maybe we were in Vegas. I can't remember. It was just a bit of a blur.
Yeah, that's why I need Timo to make it simple. Draw me a cartoon, and I'll be good."
I think that was a really good discussion, guys. Actually, there's one more thing that I would mention. I'm still curious on, and I'm pretty sure it's a whole other podcast. But that's just around BW and where that's at today. And I think there's been some big strides on that side in terms of working on HANA and the data platform. And maybe there's some people we could kind of invite on. Maybe Clint to talk to that. I'm sure you probably much more across that, but I'm really interested in terms of how that's progressed as a technology as well.
I would bring on Ethan and probably Enrique Pinto. He's been very helpful for me, and he's obviously an ex-BW guy, so he knows that stuff really well, and obviously works for SAP now, so he kind of sees what's coming. And I've had him on before for a podcast on nearline storage, I think, and he was pretty upfront. Huh?
Hey, you don't want me on that one.
Cool.
Yeah, I can
So
spell
it's past the witching hour. I'm gonna turn into a zombie.
Let's put a bow on it. Any closing comments?
Oh, you better edit this out. Closing comments. So I mean, for me, it's kind of, I don't know, it's what I've been saying for the last 3 years. SAP do have great tech there. When we get our license sorting out, hashtag rant, I will definitely be blogging about extended storage, because I think it's amazing and I can't wait to use it. When we get our license sorted out, hashtag rant, I will blog about smart data streaming, because I think that's quite positive as well. When we get our license sorted out, hashtag rant, I'd love to have a look at the data integrator stuff as well. But no, BS aside, I think they have taken a lot of strides. I would be quite intrigued, and it's a question I'm going to ask in Sapphire, what happened to the real-time data platform messaging? Because I think it was a good one, and maybe people weren't buying into it. Maybe that's why it's disappeared. I don't know. But to SAP's credit, they have done a lot of work integrating the Sybase products in. How well it works and where the case studies of people actually using it will be very interesting as well, because as Derek alluded to, it's a make or break, and it's those big those big multinationals that install dynamic tiering and have amazing performance and save 90% of storage costs and blah blah blah. Those are the big wins that they need to get out there and publicize to take it mainstream. Over.
Nope. I think those are some great points. I'm just going to second them. I'm curious. I can spell BW, so that if you want to have me on a podcast for more cold medicine-induced humor, that's fine. For the BW discussion, I can spell it. But I think that the cast that Clint lifted was a great discuss. It was a great cast upcoming. But Clint, I agree with you 100% in what you just said, and echoing my essays.
So bring your cough medicine to Orlando so we can sit on the lazy river and sip it and ponder S4.
Oh, we'll never survive. It'll be S5 by the time we get out of the lazy river.
And I think that's a perfect place to end. So thanks very much, guys, for joining me on your early Monday morning, and Clint for staying up very late. So appreciate it. Thank you.
Get some sleep, gents.
Ciao, ciao.
See ya.
This podcast is hosted and sponsored by EV Technologies. Visit us on the net at savethecms.com.
DSLayer!